So if you're a business right now trying to optimize your ads for ROAS, you're actually losing yourself profit. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through the actual math to back that up because I know it might sound a little bit crazy. I'm going to show you how it works, how to do it for your business, and also really importantly, the number one thing that you have to know that's going to determine what level of ROAS you need on the front end to end up with the highest leverage of profit for your specific business. All right, so let's get into it. I want to start with what everyone is doing, right? All of the ad platforms, you generally see ROAS columns. So it's like we've had this thing in the industry where a lot of people think that's a good metric. All right. And it's a metric, it's an okay metric. It's a signal, but it's not a good metric. It's not a metric that you should be making decisions on. And I've talked about this in future videos, but I want to actually show you the math on this that shows you how it works. All right. So the problem is like when you look at the ROAS, people are afraid of losing money up front. And trust me, I get it. You know, you're spending a lot of money on inventory, on an overhead, all that stuff. So when you acquire customers, it's like, oh my God, I can't even fathom going in the hole for 30, 60, 90, 6 months, whatever it is, to acquire that customer, right? Am I going to get it back? I don't know. Is my data reliable? All these things. So I totally get it. That's one of the reasons why I'm such a huge fan of making sure that you're data driven, because if you have the data and you know based on years or whatever of historical performance, you know exactly how much you're making from each customer at any given interval, whether that's 30 days, 90 days, 6 months, 12 months, 5 years, whatever it is. You can do all that if you have the proper data dashboard built for your business. So the problem is that if you think about business is it's an equation of what you spend to acquire customers and what you have in overhead and all that stuff, all of your expenses versus how much revenue and how much, more specifically, contribution margin you collect from each customer over a given time frame. All right, that's like the basis of what we're working with here. And if you've noticed this, which I'm sure that you have, higher ROAS up front means you're going to get less volume. And that's kind of obvious, right? The more you can spend to acquire customers, the more volume you're going to get because the ad platforms are going to be able to reach more broad audiences in order to keep that same ROAS or keep that same customer acquisition cost, whatever your term that you use for that is. All right. And so basically, higher ROAS, less volume, lower ROAS, higher volume. All right. So we have to figure out based on that, those are the levers, right, that we have. Do we go more ROAS up front, knowing that we're going to get more profit on the back end, but with or more, more. I just messed that up. We'll start it again. Less ROAS upfront would be, more customers, and I'll show you through if it's going to make sense versus like if you're getting a higher ROAS upfront, you're going to get less customers, but each customer is more profitable. That's what I meant to say. Each customer is more profitable. I'm going to walk you through the math of this. All right. So we're going to go a couple baseline assumptions for this. Don't worry about the numbers too much with any example that I do. Don't worry about the numbers. Whether you might be at 50 million a year listening to this, so these numbers are going to be super low to you. You may be just starting out, so these numbers may seem crazy to you, right? Don't worry about the numbers themselves. Worry about the concept behind the numbers. All right. So we're going to go with a $100 average order value. 50% contribution margin, which means that you keep $50 from each of those sales, and a $300 1-year LTV, which means that day one they're worth $100, and then over a year you add $200 to their lifetime value over the first year. And if we have a 50% overall, like a blended contribution margin, that means that for each customer, you keep $150. It's really important, so keep that in your head. All right. Now we're going to do two examples of this. One's going to be conservative with a higher, with it basically a positive front end ROAS. One's going to be an aggressive where you're going negative front end ROAS, and actually negative by a long shot too, right? So let's just assume. So remember the important part is the profit per customer over the first year. So keep that in your mind. So right now it's 150. conservative side, let's say that you have a $40 CAC, or cost to acquire customer, customer acquisition cost, and you have 1,200 customers per year. All right. And you have 100, that gives you, because you have that $40, it costs you $40 to acquire a customer, and you know that you have $150 in contribution margin. It's just 150 minus 40 equals $110 in contribution margin dollars per customer times 1,200 customers is $132,000, all right, in contribution margin dollars. And then you would subtract your overhead from that. So let's just say that you have $100,000 in overhead. So that means that you would have a $32,000 per year in profit, all right? That is from the lower volume, but front end ROAS, where you're spending, what was it? We were making 50 bucks on the front end for $40 customers. So you're making, it's like 120% ROAS, 125, whatever it is, right? On a contribution margin basis. So next we're going to do the aggressive thing. So in this one, we're going to bump our CAC up to $100 from 40. So 2.5 times higher customer acquisition costs, which might sound insane. I'm going to show you the math why it's not insane. Now, the other assumption is that because we went up 2.5 times in our allowable cost, we now have 5 times the amount of customers. All right. So we're getting kind of like a 2-to-1 leverage in there. That's going to be the thing. There are so many factors that go into that. So it's just a guess, but like in general, if you double, you're going to get more than double the amount of customers from that. It depends so much, right? It depends on the market awareness levels that you're doing. It depends on your current level of scale that you have, how broad of a market you're already attracting. There's so many things that go into this. I just want to show you the math, because the math in this example doesn't matter. What matters is the math for your business, right? So I'm teaching you how to think through the math, right? So don't worry about that. So anyways, $100 in CAC gives you 6,000 annual customers. So remember, we're still making that same $150 per customer. So you go from 110 profit per customer all the way down to 50. So your margin on each individual customers is way lower, all right? But you have 5 times more customers. So it's that profit per customer times the number of customers. That's what's going to give you your overall contribution margin dollars as a combination. So $50 profit per customer times 6,000 customers is $300,000 now in contribution margin. Before it was 132. So we've basically tripled, whatever that is. Roughly tripled, a little bit less, our contribution margin dollars. Now, you have 5 times the amount of customers, so let's just say that you have to double your overhead costs. You may not have to. You may only have to add one outsourced person for $2,000 a month that can handle the extra inventory, the extra kind of work that's going to go along with your manufacturer, your fulfillment center, all that sort of stuff. Again, it depends on where you are. Don't worry about that, right? You may be able to do this with no increase in overhead. But if you did, let's just say that you doubled your overhead, you added an extra 100,000. Well, now it's $200,000 in overhead. So you have the 300,000 in contribution margin costs minus the 200,000 in overhead, which gives you $100,000 in profit. Now, that means that you increase your CAC by 2.5 times. You dropped your day one ROAS from like 1.2 down to 0.5, right? On a contribution margin basis. But yet, if you look at that over a year, right? Because we're looking at 1 year LTV, you get a 212% increase in actual profit, right? That's kind of crazy. That's 3 times the profit by going negative on the front end to get more volume, knowing that you're going to make it up over time. Crazy to think about, right? Now, and again, these are just numbers. We would have to run this simulation for your specific business. Yours may be 5 times. Yours may be only a 50% increase. I don't know what it was because I don't know your business. I don't know your numbers yet. Here's what you have to know about this, though. This is the really, really crucial point in all of this is this all comes down to your LTV to CAC ratio, because this only works if you have a very high difference between what your day one AOV is and what your 1 year lifetime value is. All right. So that is like the critical piece. That's why I'm constantly on people about, doing that and getting that. Right. So Yeah, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to show you the math. This is why I do the math. It's why I'm so data driven on anything. It's why we need to have the math that backs every decision that we're doing. And so if you're not data driven, if you don't have all these things in place, do that, reach out to me. Otherwise, I hope that this video helped you, gave you insights. If it did, make sure you share, like, comment, all the various things, and have a great rest of your day.